there, welcome to another yoga sequence with me, Anne. Thank you all so much for your support last week when I decided to not record a yoga session just from a long week, an exhausting week, realizing that I needed to take care of myself and do the things that I absolutely had to do, and then maybe put aside some of the things that could wait. So I appreciate the messages I got of support about my self-care and self-love, and I encourage you to always do the same for yourself. So if you need to take a break, not do yoga, not do something that maybe you've committed to because you need to take care of you, then please do that. It's so important to take care of ourselves during these times we're in right now, but really always. So please take care of yourself. But welcome to another session with me. I'm excited about this session. This week we're going to do a whole yoga sequence lying on our backs. If that doesn't sound appealing to you, you're welcome to do pretty much everything seated. You may find that some things will be easier lying down, so you're welcome to go back and forth. But I'm going to teach this completely reclined yoga sequence today. There will be a time or two that I'll sit up, so it's easier for me to show you in my body, because sometimes it's harder to see things. They're much more subtle lying down. So I may sit up for a moment to show something, but other than that, the sequence is going to be lying down. So you choose how you do most of the poses today. Remembering to always honor your body. Like I honored myself last week. It was somewhat of a physical thing, but mostly a mental, emotional exhaustion. And so I knew that if I physically taxed myself, it would be too much. So that's in all situations, in your yoga practice, in your life. So it could be a physical thing or something that's just a little too much mentally or emotionally. So honor your body today. If you don't want to do something, you don't do it. If you need to modify, you modify. And if it's not the time to do yoga, then don't do a yoga practice. And pretty much your life is yoga, right? If you choose to not practice yoga for some reason, for something else, that might be your yoga, and that's totally fine and totally appropriate. Props that we'll need today. So if you have yoga props, you're going to need a blanket. One block. I know whenever I say if a teacher tells me to get one block, I get two. So if you have two blocks, you're welcome to have two. You likely will only need one, but a block and a yoga strap. If you don't have any of those things, for sure you want to have a towel or some sort of blanket that folds easily. So bath towels, beach towels tend to be nice because they'll fold, so that you can use this for under your head. I'm seated on another blanket right now, so at least some sort of support for your head, and then this can be used later as the block instead of the block. But if you still have books in your house, if you're not completely electronic, then you can use books for later. And then as your strap can be a necktie or the belt from a robe, entirely up to you. I'll also teach the pose that we're going to use the strap for, excuse me, without a prop, that you can use your own body or own hands as a prop. I'm going to set that stuff aside. We'll come to lie down in constructive rest, my favorite way to start class. If you'd prefer to start seated, you're welcome to be seated. Make sure you sit on something. Come to lie down with your knees bent, your feet on your mat. So you want your feet to be about hip distance apart. And once you're here, you may find that you need to adjust a little bit your shoulders. I like to make sure that the blanket's really supporting the base of my skull and not on my neck. So keep the natural curve of my neck. It just feels better for me. And then make any adjustments you might need to. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. You can place your hands on your belly. If that's not comfortable, place them somewhere that is. And then start to notice your breath here. Feel your next inhale. What happens physically in your body as you inhale? And what happens physically as you exhale? So we've got a lot of things going on in our minds, a lot of distractions. And you're likely practicing at home, so there's extra distractions at home because that might be your office now, or there are extra people home when normally they aren't, animals, all sorts of things. So notice those distractions. So as you inhale, you welcome that distraction. And as you exhale, you let it go. However many times you have to do that, same distraction, multiple distractions. Thank them for reminding you to be present in this moment. And then let them float away, let them go. A few more rounds of breath here. Start to open your eyes. Move your fingers, your toes, your wrists, your ankles, feet and hands. You can stretch. You can hug your knees in. You can move your head and neck side to side. You get to decide here. And then wherever you are, hug your knees in. And you could just stay still. You could rock. You could open and close your knees, move your knees forward and back. So you're like straightening your arms and then bending your elbows to bring your knees back into your chest. So anything here. Typically when I come to lie on my mat, just lying on a hard, flat surface is a little intense on my back. So sometimes I need to do a little bit of movement here just to help release, especially helping to release the low back. And then bring your feet back to your mat. Your knees are bent, your feet are on your mat. You're going to come into a pelvic tilt. I'm going to sit up in a moment in case this doesn't make sense. You can't tell because this is a pretty subtle movement lying down. It's much more obvious seated or in traditional cat-cow when you're on all fours. You're going to move to your breath. So if it helps, you could place your hands on your belly. So the next time you exhale, you're going to imagine your air pressing out, and you're going to start to bring your low back to the mat, spreading your low back onto the mat, hollowing out your belly. So as you exhale, you're going to tilt your tail like you're trying to bring your tail under. And then when you inhale, you're going to arch your back like you're trying to tilt your tail up. And it seems weird because we're upside down, but you are tucking. Right here you're tilting, and then here you're tucking like in the cats and then the cow. And I'll sit up for a moment and come into that seated. So here's the tucking, bringing my pelvis under my body, hollowing out my belly, rounding my low back. So I'm spreading my low back, and then I'm inhaling, opening up, arching my back. So it's a tucking and a tilting. There won't be as much movement because you've got a floor beneath you. And you go to what feels best for you, so you don't have to go to any extremes. This is a nice way to start to warm up the lower body, your hips, your pelvis, your sacrum, your low belly, your low back. Finish the round you're in and do one more. Once you're complete, whenever that is, don't feel hurried or rushed to get there. Come back to neutral. And then step your feet as wide as your mat. And again, we're going to move to our breath. So when you exhale, your knees will go over to one side, and when you inhale, you bring your knees back up. So as you exhale, bring them over to one side. Inhale, come back up. Exhale to the other side. Keep moving to your own breath. And notice if you start to lose track of the connection with the movement and your breath. If your movement's going faster, if it's going slower, if you're just kind of flopping your legs over, like have control, move with intention. And you don't have to go very far. If it's better for you to just move your knees an inch or two to one side, then that's what you do. So check in. Even if it's a simple movement that you think, my body should be able to do this, it doesn't matter. It's whatever your body can do right now in this moment. Do one more round. Come back to center, so bring your feet back to being hip distance apart. You might feel the need to adjust your shoulders, your hips, anything else. And hug your right knee into your chest. And here, just hold your knee in for a moment. And then you're going to keep your right hand on your right knee. Your left hand can go wherever is comfortable. You're going to start to circle your knee in one direction. It can be big, it can be small. Maybe you want to start out small and then start to move a little bigger. Trying to wake up that hip, inner and outer, and then reverse it. Circling in the other direction. Once you feel complete, come back to center. And from here, you're going to extend your leg up long, bring your hands behind your thigh. And let's do some stuff for the feet, the toes, the ankles. So here you're going to flex, so you're going to press through the heel. If that's too much, then press more through your ball of your foot. And then you're going to point your toes. And you'll flex again or press through the ball and point. Do that 2 more times. So sometimes pressing through the heel can be too much for sciatica or other issues in your legs and your back. So just honor that, pay attention. And then come back to center and let's circle in one direction 4 times. And once that's complete, circle in the other direction 4 times. And then come back to center. And then imagine you could spread your toes and then scrunch your toes. And spread and scrunch. 2 more. This might give you a foot cramp. And you might not notice your toes moving at all. I'm mirroring, so my left side, hug your knee back in. Doesn't do so great with the spreading of the toes. Okay, so here we're going to bring the leg back up. But if you have a strap or a belt or a tie, you're going to use that. And if you don't, then just come back up how you were before with your hand on your hamstrings. So if you have a strap, your leg should come up nice and tall and long. If I don't have a strap, my arms aren't very long. I do have a bend in my knees. So you just straighten as much as you can. Your strap can be on the arch of the ball of the foot. You get to decide, pressing through your heel or the ball of your foot. And then you decide if your other knee stays bent or you extend that leg out long. And if you extend that leg out long, it's active as well. So that intensifies the stretch. It might be too much. And if it is, honor that and bend your knee again. And then notice, like I start to really grip onto my strap. So can you hold on to your strap or the back of your thigh without gripping? Can you let go a little bit? Let that tension float away. And if you're like, no, then maybe you need to release a little. Move your leg away. Maybe not hold on to the back of your thigh. Bend your knee. Release your strap, hug your knee in. Maybe you need to do a little movement here. And then extend both of your legs out long on your mat with your legs relaxed, your whole body relaxed. And just notice the 2 sides. And come back to constructive rest. Bend your knees, bring your feet back to your mat. And hug your other knee into your chest. If it's your left knee, it's your right, whatever it is, hug that in for a moment, holding. You can always have your hands either on your shin or behind your knee at the back of your thigh, at your hamstrings. And then we'll start to circle. So have the same hand and the same knee and start to circle in one direction. Start small, move bigger, stay small. Switch the direction. One more time. Bring your knee back in. And then you're going to extend your leg up long. Have your hands at the back of your thigh. Unless that's not okay, then you can release. I find it just gives me better support. And then you're going to flex or press through the ball of your foot and then point. And you're going to do that 4 times. And you may find that one side is way easier than the other. You may find that you have to press through the heel on one side and the ball of the foot on the other. And then come back to center, and then you're going to circle in one direction 4 times. And then you'll circle in the other direction 4 times. Coming back to center, you're going to spread your toes. These toes spread so much more, and then scrunch. And then spread and scrunch. Do that 2 more times. You know your toes are supposed to move like your fingers independently. Hug your knee back into your chest. We're going to come into Supta Padangusthasana, reclined hand to big toe pose. If you have a strap or strap-like item, put it on the ball or the arch of your foot. Extend your leg up long and tall. If you don't have a strap, bring your hands behind your thigh. Reach up, whether it's through the heel or the ball of your foot. Decide if you're going to extend your other leg out long, keeping it just as active. Just because you did it on the first side doesn't mean you will on the second, and vice versa. So just honor this side of your body. You may find this side much tighter. Maybe you have more accessibility on this side, or it's equally as tight. Notice if you're gripping for dear life where you don't need to, can you let go a little? Bend your knee, release your strap, hug your knee in, make any movement here that might feel good. And then extend your leg to meet your other leg. Relaxed again, just checking in, noticing, and feeling. Step your feet back onto your mat. Hug your knees back into your chest. If you want to make some movement here, stay still. Open and close your knees. Starting to warm up those hips. You might feel like you have a little more accessibility here. I like to kind of roll over one side. Keep my knees slightly wide. Whatever feels good for you. And then come back to constructive rest with your knees bent, your feet on your mat. Your feet are hip distance apart. We're going to come into what's called arch pose, so it's like a mini bridge. I prefer to not have a blanket under my head during this. We're not going to come as high as a bridge pose, so I'm not as concerned, but it's best to just not have anything under the neck. I think the last time I taught this, I tried it with the blanket and I didn't like it. So if you need a little padding, it's fine, but we want to keep the natural curve of our necks. So firmly place your feet into your mat. And it's almost like that tucking and tilting again, but you're just going to lift up. So you're barely going to lift your hips up off of your mat. And make sure that your knees don't go out to the side. So imagine you have a block between your thighs and you're squeezing that, but then you're also keeping your knees in line with your hips and in line with your feet. And then slowly bring your hips back down. You can slide your support back under your head. And then come into extending your legs out long. You can always keep your knees bent if you find this is too much for your back. Press through your heels or the balls of your feet. I know it's a little hard to scooch up just a tiny bit. All I'm doing is activating through my feet and my legs. And then start to reach your arms up toward the ceiling, reaching through your fingertips. This may be enough for you today, or you start to bring your arms up overhead. Perhaps you bring your arms by your ears, just depending on what's going on in your shoulders, other parts of your body. If you really feel like you're arching, maybe you bring your arms back into a higher position up toward the ceiling. Make sure that your breath is flowing. And you're going to relax. If it's okay to keep your arms overhead, you do. You can always adjust. I have one shoulder that kind of prevents me from doing some stuff up overhead, so always adjust. We're going to come into what's called banana asana. So step your feet as wide as your mat, keeping your legs out long. And then you're going to bring one leg, bring your left leg over to your right. So you're kind of coming in the shape of a banana. And then you can decide if you bring your left arm toward your right. So your whole torso is going to stay on the mat. It might be better for you to just do the lower part and not the upper part. Some people can have their arms extended out long. That doesn't really work for me, so I usually have my elbows bent. You may find that you can bring your left foot across your right leg, come deeper. If you can shift your shoulders more, you do. If it's too much, back off. And then imagine right here that you can breathe into your left side of your body more than your right, but don't feel like you're crunching in your right. You still want to have some length there. You'll come back to what feels like center, neutral for you. Uncrossing your legs, you come back to that wider stance with the legs. And then you're going to bring your right leg over to your left. And then you bring your right arm towards your left. And you shift your shoulders if that feels okay. This one's a little harder for me to do on this side. You could pick your right foot up and cross it over your left. And then imagine here that you can breathe a little bit more into your right side than your left side. But don't neglect the left side. And notice if you feel crunched, maybe you need to come out a little bit. Start to come back out. If you'd like to do one more Tadagi Mudra, that full body stretch, whether arms up or up and over. Make sure your breath is still flowing. And bring your arms back down by your sides. Step your feet back to your mat, coming back to constructive rest. Shifting anything you might need to here to adjust. And then shift your hips a little bit over to the right. And then you're going to move your knees over to the left to come into a twist. If this is too intense, you can come back to more neutral and then move your knees over. Arms can be wherever is comfortable, out to the side, on your belly, on your chest, a hand on your knee. Twisting can be really nice for back issues, and then it cannot be really nice. So that's why you have to check in. You don't always have to come into the fullest expression of the pose. Your knees don't have to go as far. The next time you inhale, bring your knees back up. Fully exhale, shift back to center. So come here for a moment before we go to the second side. And then you can pick your hips up and slide them just a little bit over to the left as you move your knees to the right. You may find your arms are going to go in a different place on this side. If you feel like your opposite shoulder is popping up, don't force it down. But if it is causing pain, then bring your knees up a little higher so you're not going into the twist as deeply. The next time you inhale, bring your knees back up. Adjust again, bringing yourself back to neutral. We're going to come into Supta Baddha Konasana, that's reclined cobbler's pose. So the soles of your feet are going to touch and your knees are going to go out wide. Your feet do not have to touch. This might be pretty intense. I find it to be pretty intense. So I actually walk my feet a little more forward, and I don't typically have my feet touch. You may find less intensity with your feet touching. So check in with that. And if it's just way too much, then come out of it. Just come back to constructive rest. If your arms are long enough, you can bring it on the outside of your thighs to help bring your knees back up. Step back into constructive rest and then hug your knees into your chest. Moving or staying still, whatever works for you. Come back to constructive rest. You're going to pick your right foot up and cross your right ankle over your left knee or thigh to come into a figure four. And then take your right hand and press it into your left thigh. Don't press it into your knee. If this is too much, then back off, but this is to help move your knee away from your shoulder. Have your foot active, so ideally pressing through the ball of your foot, your heel. If that's not okay, then press through the ball of your foot. Keeping your foot active keeps your joint safe, most especially your knee. And then you're going to remove your hand if it's still there. You're going to come into a twist. You're going to start to bring your right foot toward the left. Like you're trying to place your foot on the mat. It might not get there. If you have support that you want to put underneath, you can. It can also just float. Another twist here, checking in with your shoulders If your opposite shoulder's popping up, make sure that's okay. If it doesn't feel okay, then come somewhat out of the twist to take out the intensity in your shoulder or anywhere else that is maybe feeling it too much. And even though this looks like a fairly simple pose, check in with your breath. With all your poses, your breath's going to tell you if you've gone too far. The next time you inhale, imagine you're going to lift up with your core. Fully exhale. And we're going to come into the twist on the other side. So you're going to bring your right knee down toward the right. Again, you decide how far you go. For me, my opposite shoulder does come a little bit off of the mat, but it feels okay for me. I'm not adding any strain or stress to my shoulder or my chest. And for me, it feels kind of nice. If it doesn't for you, then adjust that. Your foot's still active. Next time you inhale from your core, like from your belly button, lift back up, fully exhale, and release your foot. Adjust again to come to constructive rest, pausing between the two sides. And then pick your other foot up, so it's probably your left foot crossing over your right, but it might be different. And then same hand pressing into same thigh, if that's okay. Make sure you're not pressing on your knee. Keep your foot active. It's helping to open your hip. We're not going into the full expression of figure 4 today. If you know it and you want to do it, you're welcome to do that. That one's pretty intense for me. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, no big deal. Your hands on your thigh, release. Coming into the twist, bringing your left foot toward the right. Whether it comes down to the mat, the floor, or not. Checking with your opposite shoulder. The next time you inhale from your core, start to lift back up. Fully exhale. Release. Oh, no, don't release your foot. You're going to come into the twist on the other side. So starting to bring your left knee toward the left. And the side's different, so maybe you need to adjust. I find I actually have to adjust the support under my head. Check in with your opposite shoulder. If you need to come out early, come out a little bit, please do. Inhale, coming back up with that core, lifting, fully exhale, release your foot, come back to constructive rest, making adjustment that you might need to. Seems like whenever I start teaching, my nose gets very itchy. Okay, hug your right knee into your chest. We're going to come into an upside down lunge. So your body's not going to exactly do this, but think about your thigh being parallel to the floor. Think about your shin being perpendicular to the floor, and then your foot being parallel to the ceiling. So you just come into the best. It's like a half happy baby, if you know happy baby. My thigh doesn't come anywhere parallel to the floor. You could hold on to the back of your thigh, but you want your knee bent. Active foot. You could hold on to the back of your calf. You could hold on to your foot if you can easily reach without straining. This is a little intense for me. And then you want to aim your knee toward the outside of your shoulder. Your other knee can stay bent, or you can extend your leg out long. That foot and leg need to be active as well. So check in. If that's too much, bend your knee again. If you need to move your hand on a different part of your leg, please do. Check in with your breath. Hug your knee into your chest, bring your other knee in, hug in. And from here, we're going to come into an upside down, downward facing dog. So just, doesn't have to look exactly like it, it won't. So start to extend your legs up toward the ceiling, press through your heels or your balls of your feet. You can reach your arms up toward the ceiling or even a little bit up and over. Then bend your knees again. Bring your feet back to your mat, 1 foot at a time. And we'll come on the other side. So hug your left knee into your chest or your other knee. And then you're going to start to bring your leg into the action, thinking about your thigh going toward parallel to the floor, your shin toward perpendicular to the floor, and your foot as if all four corners would touch the ceiling. Even if your foot's more like this and you're more going to press toward the wall or whatever's in front of you. And then hold on to the best spot for you, behind your thigh, behind your calf, your foot. Make sure that there's no strain in your neck. That's why it's nice to have support under your head. And then check in. Just because you extend the leg on the first side doesn't mean you will on the second. So you can always extend. Whoa. Check in. Notice your breath. Notice if you're holding on, especially with your hand. Are you holding on for dear life? Can you soften that in any way? And then think about your knee going toward the outside of your shoulder in your upside down lunge. Bend your knee, hug it in, hug your other knee in. Come into upside down, downward facing dog once again, extending your legs, extending your arms, the best position for you. Reaching. This time let's pedal our feet. So bend one knee, straighten the other leg as much as you can. Ooh, I feel some shaking. Do one more time if you're doing the pedaling. Then hug your knees back in. Set your feet back down one at a time. We're going to come into our bridge pose. So I'm going to show you 2 setups for this. If you have support under your head, you're going to move that out of the way to keep the natural curve of your neck. This is even more important than the arch pose because we are going to come higher than arch. Unless arch was good for you and you want to stay in that position, you don't have to come up all the way to bridge. And if you decide not to do a working bridge, we're going to do a working bridge and then move to supported bridge. If you just want to come into supported bridge, you will. So I'm going to show you set up for it with a blanket and with a block. So first with the block. So first we do a regular bridge. I like to have my arms down by my sides, palms facing down. Press all your feet, all 2 or 1 into the mat and lift up. So this is arch, just barely lifting. You can stay here or you can start to lift your hips higher. Make sure your knees don't go out to the side, so you want to aim your knees towards your feet and have all in alignment with your hips, your knees, and your feet. And then eventually, you'll slide your support under your sacrum, your tailbone, your hips. You don't want the block under your back. Ugh, that feels terrible. So you might have to adjust a little bit. If you don't have a block, you could also use a book for this. A nice, thick, hardback book will work. But blanket works as well, and it's a little more gentle. This will support your hips, your sacrum, your pelvis, and a little bit of your low back. And then you just rest down on that. So you decide, I'm going to stay here if you want to use your blanket or your block. Oh, that's right. We got to do active bridge first, though, right? Almost forgot about that. All right. Constructive rest. Arms down by your side, pressing your palms into your mat. Press your feet into the mat. As you inhale, start to lift your hips, 1 vertebrae at a time. If you need to come down early, you come down early. Keep aiming your knees towards your feet, same direction as your feet. It's almost like you have a block between your thighs. You'll start to sag a little, so see if you can lift up. Your heart is opening. And then take your support, whatever you're going to use, slide it under, and then rest your hips back down. You may have to adjust a little bit. From here, you can keep your legs just as they are. You can step your feet wide and have your knees come into each other to support each other. It's a little more restorative. I prefer it. Supported bridge, I get pretty relaxed, and sometimes my knees and legs start swaying. So this way they support each other, and I don't have that movement, that worry that my legs will just fall over. feet are out wide, step them back to center, bring your knees to stand tall, press your feet in to lift up, moving your support out of the way, and then one vertebrae at a time until you bring your hips back down into the mat. Whatever you want or need here. If you want to hug your knees in, stretch. If you know happy baby and want to do a full happy baby, we basically did a half happy baby today with our upside down lunge. I do not love happy baby and never want to do it, but if you do or something else, feel free. Then we're going to start to set up for our final pose, Shavasana. So depending on what props you have, if you happen to have 2 blankets, it can be nice to have one under your head and the other one, whether it's a towel or a blanket, you roll it up and have support for your knees. You could stay in constructive rest. You could come back into supported bridge. Constructive rest, you could have your knees wide and your feet apart. I said that wrong. You could have your feet wide and your knees close together. Arms wherever is comfortable. So make those little adjustments and then come to stillness. And you may notice that you need to adjust, you need to scratch an itch. Notice if it's more of a fidget or it's something that you really need to take care of. Whatever the answer is, just notice. It doesn't matter. Come back to the natural cycle of your breath. And on my videos, we don't hold Shavasana for very long. I highly recommend 5, 10, 15 minutes. So you're welcome to set up, pause the video, set the timer on your phone. I like to place it right on my belly so when the alarm goes off, I can easily find it. You can have it right by your side. But maybe today you just have time for a short Shavasana. We should never short ourselves of Shavasana, but that's life. So we just do our best, right? You can always do Shavasana before you go to bed, do a little yoga, whatever that is for you. So we try to just be here and not do. We don't control our breath, but you'll notice thoughts and distractions. So allow the breath to help you with that. Inhale, there's that thought. Exhale, it floats away, over and over. Start to deepen your breath. Making movement in outer extremities first. Your fingers, your toes, your hands, feet, ankles, wrists. And then you can move on to bigger movements, the stretch, hugging your knees in, windshield wipering. Whatever sounds good for you. Yawning is a good thing in yoga as well. And eventually you'll make your way over to one side. Stay here for a breath or two. With the strength of your hands and arms, you're going to press yourself up to seated, bringing your head up last. And then find a comfortable seat. You want to sit well. So make sure that you have your block or your blanket so that you can sit tall and long. You don't have to sit cross-legged. You can have your knees bent, feet on the mat. You can have your legs out long. You get to decide. Baddha Konasana might feel better seated than lying down. So check in that you're sitting tall and long. You can close your eyes or soften your gaze. Bring your hands together at heart center in Anjali Mudra. Keep peace in your mind. Keep strength in your body. And keep love in your heart. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing with me today and trying something a little bit different with a completely reclined yoga practice. I actually think that's the best kind of yoga that you can do lying on your back, but I do love all kinds of yoga. So thank you for practicing with me today. Don't forget to take care of yourself, honor yourself. You're welcome to comment down below. You can email me at therealgofitgirl@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter at GoFitGirl and Instagram at therealgofitgirl. Have a great day, and I hope to practice with you again soon. Thanks.